How are we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here. Welcome back to another video. So today I want to take a little bit of a look at enchanting. We're going to get this thing leveled from 1 to 100, and we're going to do it relatively efficiently, or as efficiently as can be, and more importantly, quite cheap. Enchanting is not going to be too expensive if you do it right, and there's a couple of options towards the tail end of enchanting where you can cheap out, or you can throw some gold at it if you want to get it done quickly, whichever suits you. Today, though, we are going to look at a relatively optimal route. I am recording this about 10 days before the expansion actually goes live. So I and probably everybody else is crossing their fingers that there is #no changes between now and the launch. If there is any changes to this between now and the launch, I will try and keep a pinned comment up to date. But the safest bet for everybody, as you might be able to see on screen already, is my Goblin Guide to the War Within. All of this information is documented in here, all the materials, the leveling route, some notes to go with it, for not only enchanting, but for every profession as well. This is now available to my gold goblins over on Patreon. Thank you from me for all of their long-term support, making it so I can consider this a job, which is very nice. But let's take a little bit of a look at enchanting then. Firstly, materials-wise, what are we looking to expect from materials? Well, storm dust is our dust. We have gleaming shards, which are our shards, and refulgent crystals, which are our epic crystals. If you've played with enchanting before, this will all sound quite familiar to you. Quality, you may notice there's quality on the materials this time round, which is something a little bit new to enchanting. That might be a bit of a shock to people. I only have easy access on the beta to quality 3 materials. For the purpose of leveling, you want to make sure you're using quality 1. Don't waste your gold on expensive quality 3 materials, just while we're trying to fill this bar. Cheap out, use the basic stuff. Once we've got this skill and once we've got some tools in order and once we've built our spec points into our spec trees a little bit, then we can consider using higher quality, more expensive components to craft some good stuff that people might actually want. But we're just trying to get the job done for now. I've tried to figure out roughly the amount of materials you might need. You're going to need a runed copper rod to even do some enchanting if you are brand new to enchanting on this character. If you are stepping in from Dragonflight, you might already have some profession tools and accessories, meaning you won't need your runed copper rod. Your profession tool from Dragonflight will do you just fine. And of course, you're going to need some enchanting vellums off the vendor as well to put some of these enchants on if you wish to sell them on the auction house. You're also going to need 4 bismuth rods. This will make sense in a minute or two once we get a little bit further into the guide. These are also vendor items. If you are in Dornogal, the main capital city in the War Within, if you're at the profession trainer there, the supplies dude standing right next to him will sell these. So these are easily acquirable. Don't be buying these on the auction house. These will be expensive on the auction house. Let's get into it then. Leveling to about 75 is nice and easy. 75 to 100, there's a few options. And so these materials will actually only get you to skill 75. From 100 onwards, from 75 to 100, you have a few choices, which I will go through in as much detail as I can. But let's cut to the chase then. Let's get straight into it. Let's get some skills under our belt. So we're going to put everything on enchanting vellums. We're going to start off by making 9 of these glimmering hastes. That should get us up to skill 10. My philosophy for when it comes to leveling the professions is to try and do it as cheaply as possible. This has meant that I'm making a little bit of a guesstimation to the value of some of the materials from time to time. But usually I get this quite close, and there shouldn't be any surprises that jump out to us, I don't think, when the game goes live, so we should be relatively safe. I also don't go the strategy of crafting 1 of everything with my leveling guides. I tend to think it's best to level in an optimal fashion and then go back and craft 1 of everything, because at least when you go back and craft 1 of everything, you might actually be able to make it at slightly higher quality. Then you might have a better chance of selling it, which is the entire purpose of playing with professions for most people. Right, let's pick up some new recipes. We're then going to move on to Glimmering Critical Strike. We're going to craft ourselves a handful of these. 5, I believe, if I'm reading my notes correctly. Yep, 5 of these should get us up to skill 15. From skill 15, we're going to unlock the runed bismuth rod, and this is why we had to pick up some of these basic bismuth rods from the vendor. 15. As we can see, this is actually going to give us 3 skill points per craft, so this becomes really, really worthwhile crafting a few of these. Not to mention, even if you do have a tool from Dragonflight, this is actually going to be significantly better. The secondary stats that will pop up on this, they are random, but luckily we're making 4 of them anyway, so we should be able to pick whichever the best one ends up being. You're probably, if you're using quality 1 Storm Dust at this point, only making quality 1s of these, but it really doesn't matter. Skill is a nice to have, but what we're really looking for is hopefully one that's got resourcefulness. Hey, we did. We got one that's got resourcefulness on it. Now, under normal circumstances, you'd slap that in there. If you get it, use the resourcefulness one. It just means that there's now going to be an 8% chance for you to save some materials whenever you're crafting, which, you know, why not? These extra ones, feel free to throw them up on the auction house if you wish, or theoretically you can actually disenchant these to gain some of your materials back. It isn't a positive feedback loop, by the way. You get like 2 or 3 storm dust back out of them, so yeah, you're not going to get anything particularly fancy even from disenchanting these. Let's learn some next things. We are at skill 27 actually now, which is a good time to highlight the fact that you do unlock your first specialization tree at skill 25. You don't need to worry about unlocking any of these just yet for the purpose of leveling, but they might become quite important quite soon. You get the first at 25, the second at 50, the third at 60, and the fourth at 75. So they're coming. From skill 27 to 35, we're going to do some masteries, glimmering masteries. These are one of the only recipes at the moment that are actually going to give us skill points, and these are only 5 storm dust, so these are remarkably cheap. I'm going to do those up to 35, which, if my maths is correct, should be 8 of those. We have unlocked the weapon enchants, but these are going to cost quite a little bit more to actually craft. Now, of course, if you can sell them and make your money back, sure, feel free. But I also tend to assume that when you're producing relatively low quality stuff, you'll only be producing quality 1s at this point. You're probably not going to have the greatest of time selling the quality 1s. Everybody's going to want quality 2, quality 3. We're just doing it cheaply to get the skill points as it stands right now. But there we go, we hit skill 35 with those. Learn some new bits and bobs. Whisper of Silk and Leech next. Still only using 10 Storm Dust. Nice and cost effective. We're going to make 10 of these and we're going to push ourselves all the way to skill 45. You can see our resourcefulness is kicking in from time to time here, saving us some reagents, making the whole process even cheaper. You can, if you wish as well, head to the auction house and pick up some of the new accessories. They will be on the auction house pretty much day 1, I would imagine, once the expansion goes live. And you don't need to worry about quality. You really don't. Not with the green stuff. We're going to replace this with blues relatively soon anyway. So just get whatever's cheapest. From 46, oh, we got a bonus knowledge. This happens from time to time. I don't necessarily always know why. It's a bit of a bug, but sometimes it will give you a bonus skill, which is nice. We'll take it. This just means now we're going to make 9 glimmering verse ring enchants. These, once again, only 5 storm dust, so relatively cheap. We're going to craft these all the way up to skill 55. We've unlocked a second weapon enchant. We do get a few weapon enchants just via the trainers, which might be valuable for you to craft and sell early days. Two. 3 more to go. There we go. Now we can learn the last of the trainer recipes. And that is all we're going to be able to get from a trainer. But luckily, we do still have the tools available to actually push all the way to skill 75 still. From 55 up until 60, we're going to quickly craft a few of these speed ones. These quite quickly stop guaranteeing skill points though, so we're only going to craft these up until 60. One more. Skill 60, you can see it's gone yellow, meaning that we don't guarantee a skill point anymore. And we're going to switch over and we're going to do the Whisper of Armored Leech instead. We can actually take this one all the way up to skill 75 now. We're going to have to craft quite a bunch of these. It's usually about 25 of these. But this should get us all the way to skill 75. This is the only part of the path that I still have a slight suspicion Blizzard might tweak and adjust. Just because you go from 60 to 75, you go quite a big jump, crafting only one. You see it's gone yellow, so we're not necessarily actually guaranteeing skill points here. This is why we're going to have to craft quite so many of them. But we would still rather take our chances with something like this than crafting the weapon enchants, just purely because the weapon enchants are... They're using crystals, and if you were doing this at the beginning of the expansion, these crystals are going to be ludicrously expensive, because there's really no epic gear knocking about to disenchant. So you just have to... You have to brute force it sometimes. Let's get this to 72, 73. We're actually getting quite lucky with our skill points here. 74. One more. There we go. 75. Nice and efficient. We actually used quite a little bit less materials that time. The last time I played through this, I didn't get quite as lucky crafting these, and it took me an extra 50 to maybe 70 storm dust. But we got some spare materials, plus we got some spares because our resourcefulness was kicking in from time to time as well. This is where, that's basically part one of this. This is where it starts to get fun. This is where it starts to present a few options. As I've sort of forementioned, I try to go the route of saving you guys as much gold as possible when leveling this up. And so I'm going to present to you one of 4 different options which you can now get from 75 to 100. The first one is your enchanted gilded Harbinger crests. If you played Dragonflight, you'll be aware of this optional reagent system. The location of these is just listed as adventuring in Khazalgar, which is a little bit vague, and unfortunately at time of recording this I don't have too many details for you on this, but historically getting these was never really too difficult. I expect if you are leveling your enchanter in any way, shape or form during the War Within, you'll be doing some questing and these will just drop for you and you'll be fine. I suspect getting your hands on these will be relatively easy. The enchanted gilded one is the item that makes up to the mythic item level gear. These are going to be work orders. You are going to have to fill work orders to get these. Because they're work orders and they're sort of more considered seasonal gear, this might be a slightly difficult route to take until the season starts at least. But once the raid is out, once the season's begun, you'll start to get a steady flow of work orders for these. If you can snag some, these give guaranteed skill points all the way to skill 100. Option 2, another thing you could consider doing is the runed null stone rod. You as an enchanter are going to want one of these yourself anyway, so this is something to consider even for yourself. If you do not look at crafting these for others, there's a strong chance you'll be hunting down an enchanter to make one for you. The recipe for this is from the Artisan Consortium Quartermaster in Dornogal. I don't have any B-roll footage, unfortunately, of the zone at the moment, but the quartermaster is near where the crafting order stations and where all the crafting tables are. It is not very difficult to find. You can purchase the recipe with 150 artisans acuity. This might be a stumbling block for you short term because via leveling we only got 16 artisans acuity. You are going to have to put a little bit of time and effort in to get some more of this. You can predominantly get your artisan's acuity by filling some crafting orders for the patrons. If you are lucky, if you are fortunate, you should be able to fill a few of these, and these will often give you some artisan's acuity in small little doses for completing these. Every time you gain some knowledge points, you gain artisan's acuity. You can go through your list and you can go back through and you can craft one of everything. Getting your first time craft bonuses, that will also give you some artisan's acuity. This comes from many places, but this isn't a video about artisan's acuity. Do what you need to get 150 if you want to get that weapon. The profession tool. This also is going to give you guaranteed skill points. It might only be 2 this time, but it gives you guaranteed skill points all the way to skill 100. Of course, it's going to be work orders again. So, do we have an option for people that don't want to be sort of like desperately seeking out work orders? Well, there is a couple. There's a similar one. The third option I present to you is the Chant of Armored Leech. This one, the Bracer enchant. This is learned in the City of Threads. This is the final zone in the War Within, Ashkahet. Once again, you have to purchase this with 150 Artisan's Acuity and also 1500 Cash. This is a new zone currency that you'll become aware of relatively quickly. If you've been playing in the War Within at any point, and if you've been leveling through the zone, you might actually have some of this either on your character or on an alt already. And it is a transferable currency, so if you've got some on another character, you can always help your enchanter out if needs be. This is quite cheap to craft. It doesn't use any crystals, so it's going to keep the cost of crafting this down. And if you can unlock this recipe, you can craft probably 40, 45 of these in total. It's going to use a lot of storm dust mined, but 40, 45 of these will get you skill points all the way up to 100 as well. And the final little option I want to showcase to you, just to give, everybody an opportunity to get from 75 to 100. It's if you're willing to throw some gold at it, really. This is for crafting the endgame weapon enchants. You as an enchanter might be seeking these out anyway. There's the Authority of Radiant Power. This drops from the final boss in the Priory of the Sancted Flame, one of the new dungeons in the War Within. I suspect you will be able to farm this dungeon on any difficulty to get this recipe, maybe even follower dungeons. I've not unfortunately had that confirmed or denied to me, but there's a strong chance that you can just run this dungeon a few times, get this to drop. It's not going to be cheap though, mind. Crafting this a bunch of times to get your final skill points is going to be quite expensive, especially at the beginning of the expansion because it does use the crystals. But it's an option. It's the quicker way for most people if you're willing to spend a bit of gold, and you can sort of target farm this one, which is quite nice. The last option, this is more of an option if you are looking at leveling enchanting much later on in the expansion, say 11.1, 11.2, whatever turns up. Authority of Depths it drops from the raid and will be listed on the auction house. So this is an option for you to just throw some gold at it, buy this recipe, craft it 7 to 10 times, and you'll hit skill 100. This guarantees points all the way to 100 as well. So there's a few options for you, boys and girls. All of this, to remind you again, is all documented. All of the details on this, this is my cheat sheet, these are my crib notes in my full Goblin guide for the War Within. It's all documented, it's all there for you. That's available to my Gold Goblins over on Patreon. Consider checking that out if you are interested. But I hope that's been helpful to you, boys and girls. Feel free to discuss this. Let me know if you spot any changes or updates in the future in the comment section down below. Or, of course, come say hi on the Discord and let me know personally. But hit the like button if you enjoyed. Consider subscribing if you're new around here. And I'll see you all next time. Peace.